I feel like I have been tapped on the shoulder. I've been given notice
Yeah.
that you're not in the perfect health you thought you were. And as a matter of fact, you've got a fatal disease, but it's working, it's being treated. So I think I'm kind of given a chance to say, what are you going to do with your life, while you have it? What are you going to achieve? What are you going to try to advance or advocate for?
Have you or someone you love been diagnosed with a chronic or life-threatening illness? Today, we're kicking off the 2026 season with a full circle moment, welcoming back our very first guest, Joe Coughlin. And what you didn't know in that first interview last season is that Joe was battling stage 4 lung cancer. And ironically, his episode was focused on resilience, all while he was living it. And notice I said was battling stage 4 lung cancer. Joe is back with us today to share how he took a strength-based and holistic approach to one of the most terrifying seasons of his life. Welcome back to Prevention Pioneers, a show where we rewrite the rules of workplace mental health by putting prevention first. I am your host, Laura Coons. Welcome back, Joe. Thanks for coming back to be with us.
Wow, yes. A lot has gone on since. And when we met last spring, we kind of touched on the fact that I had some health issues that were going on.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you just mentioned, it turned out I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic non-small cell lung cancer. And as a non-smoker, it was quite a surprise. And oddly enough, the year before, for a person who had never been sick, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And it actually turns out that, talk about preventative care or lack thereof, on the PET scan for the prostate cancer was buried into it the fact that I had something to certainly look out for, which did in fact manifest itself into lung cancer. And for a year that went unnoticed. And that was with 3 different doctors looking at it.
Unbelievable.
And then myself included. So I have to put myself in there in the responsibility chain. But reality is, it kind of comes back to a theme that maybe we'll talk about more, is that you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to assume that you're the only one making these decisions or looking and doing the due diligence on anything. So anyway, for me, I'm looking at the camera that's here, right, and it's on a tripod, right, and it's kind of like the way that I look at medicine currently, or the wellness, and it's one is traditional medicine, which is called allopathic medicine, and the second would be naturopathic, which I am a big believer in, and then the third would be like mental health, and those 3 are interchangeable at any point in time. And I'd like to pass on some information that many people might know and a lot of people won't. But what people don't realize is that prior to 1910 in this country, you really had certain disciplines that were all almost equal with each other. Allopathic means medicine that we practice today, modern medicine, where you go to a doctor gives you a diagnosis most likely comes with a prescription, pharmaceutical, right? The second one is naturopathic or homeopathic. That was your country doctors and your, it could be city doctors, but they used naturopathic medicines. Like, for instance, people don't realize that copper, the element, can destroy 99.937% of all bacteria. And so doctors would grind it up, put it into a powder, and give it to you. And then the other one would be like osteopathic. And that is like chiropractic massages and things of that nature. All of these approaches, I should say, were almost equal until John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie commissioned a study which became the Flexner Report. And in 1910, what Flexner had done is gone out to see all of these colleges and universities, hospitals, and other hospitals that existed. And there were some 150 in the United States. Then there was like 15 or 20 or 30 university hospitals. Then he went up into Canada. And as a result of this, Flexner came back with a scathing report of how medicine was done. And essentially what he did is he elevated a few different hospitals to a level of they meet the needs of what a person would need at a time of sickness, and trashed the others. And what it did is it elevated the allopathic doctors, and that in turn turned Carnegie and Rockefeller into pharmaceutical medicines, because they were basically saying that the only way to approach medicine and in health was to go down that route. And so the Flexner report really elevated allopathic, and it knocked the others down. And that's why people to this day say, oh, chiropractors are quacks, you know? And that's the reason that people say that by taking vitamins or certain things, and, you know, we can get into, I know there's a lot of controversy, but for me, there's none. Ivermectin works, okay? I can't say that fenbendazole works, but I think it does. But those are two. And then when you get into, you know, berberine and olive leaf extract, and you get into quercetin and milk thistle and what have you, the point is that if you just relied on traditional allopathic medicine and you had a diagnosis like I did, I have a very good oncology team, one of the best in the country, but the reality is once the medicine is prescribed, that's all you would be doing.
Right.
You're just taking the medicine.
Yeah.
And you'd be sitting there and you'd be waiting. Well, in my case, that same team never once asked me about my diet, right? So here I am going for a few months after just taking this medicine, and I realize that I am feeding the beast by being a carboholic, you know, carb-intensive diet with an enormous amount of sugar that just came with it, right? So I immediately just shut that avenue out in a minute, and I haven't had sugar since. And I immediately lost like 10 pounds of sugar weight. Didn't lose any other weight, but just stopped that pathway, because what is a PET scan? PET scan is radioactive glucose that they inject into your body. And where does it light up? Well, it lights up where the cancer cells are, because cancer eats sugar, you know, like Pac-Man. And so it was gobbling it up. And so here I am just ingesting it, you know, and it was whether you drink alcohol or whether you drink sodas or whether you drink, you know, I was eating, you know, a jelly donut a day on top of maybe a piece of cheesecake and maybe, you know, a few scoops of ice cream at night, you know, and I never gained a pound. So I was like, oh, no problem, and I was never sick. So anyway, that's kind of some little things that I discovered. And so I went into the naturopathic side in a big way because I realized that I needed to be involved in my own health.
Yeah.
And by focusing on that and you know, taking my blood out and injecting it with ozone, and which kills bacteria and parasites that are in your blood, and then filtering it in through UV light and putting it back in, you know, who's to say really how effective it really is? But when you're involved and you're trying, it's different than sitting on a couch at home and doing nothing and just saying, geez, I hope the medicine works.
Yeah.
And what do you do when the medicine stops working, right? And in my case, I think we touched on this the last time, but my medical provider initially declined the medication, and they told me that there was this giant, long appeal process. And I happen to know somebody who's a very good friend who made an introduction, which actually got this drug approved, not only for me, but for all the people that have my same diagnosis. So anyway, those are just, some kind of little takeaways
Oh
there.
my goodness. Okay, so
I have a lot of other thoughts, but they get
well, good,
clouded-
because I have questions.
clouded in the drug.
I have questions. Lots of questions. Because at what point after your diagnosis did you decide to jump into the naturopathic route? Was that a tough decision?
It was a few months after, and I happened to run into a friend of mine, and she told me that she's been going to this naturopath. And she said, she had heard about what I was going through, and she said, you should really give it a try. So I went over and I met with this naturopathic doctor who was medically trained, had been an oncologist for a couple of years, and he actually became very disillusioned with, traditional medicine because they were not looking at any of the other aspects. They were just saying, stay on the course, focus on the drug that you're taking until it fails, and then we'll put you on another drug that hopefully will come out of either a clinical trial or some other type of FDA approval. And so I just decided to throw myself into that, and the more I looked into it, and the more I saw that certain vitamins and nutrients and things like that block cancer pathways. Like I believe it's pretty evident right now that, for instance, melatonin in larger doses is a cancer blocker.
Wow, didn't know that.
Right, but it's certain of these things block, certain types of cancers. So you could throw everything at the wall, in that case. But
well, and I remember you sharing with me along the way that you decided to throw everything at the wall.
Yeah.
You were like, why not? And so I remember you even mentioning you did things.
Oh yeah.
Like maybe psychedelics. Yeah.
I did ketamine. I don't recommend ketamine. Listening to loud music that is got like a cacophony of sound with it. I'd say stick to the Chilean pan flute.
You have quite an experience with ketamine, Joe?
With the spa music. Well, I did 6, doses of that, and it did it through an IV, and it gets dosed in a machine into your vein over a 50-minute period, and it is is mind. Somebody said how helpful was it, and it's known for being used for post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and some other areas of mental stress or illness and things like that. I did it because my concierge doctor, who was very open-minded to ketamine and psilocybin and things of that nature, which is psychedelic mushrooms, right? Said you give it a try, and I'd say the overall takeaway from that experience was a deplastification of the mind.
Right.
It's unlike my early days where I experimented with certain things when I was younger. This was something that I re-amazed myself, just making up a word, with what the mind could create. And because you sit in silence, you have a mask on, you have earphones where you're just listening to music, and you're in total darkness, and your mind goes and just creates worlds within worlds. It's kind of like the movie Inception,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very much.
Yeah. But weirder.
Different realms.
Yes.
I mean, well, and that's because, you and I have stayed in contact over this past year.
Yes.
And I saw a shift in you because I remember we had lunch when you had just been diagnosed.
Yeah.
And one statement that you made really resonated with me. You said every day right now I'm waking up and I'm making a decision if I'm living or if I'm dying.
Yeah.
And I remember then, I mean, it was months before we maybe met or talked again, and you just had a completely different energy that next time.
Yeah.
And you went through all of the things that you were doing, and I was like, wow, like that's a mentality of an open mind. I've decided I'm living.
Right.
And then, so that's why I think this story is so important to share.
Right.
So what other things did you do to keep the fear at bay?
Well, I would start crying extemporaneously. I would be telling a story, and all of a sudden it would be laced with my children or my wife or something, and I'd break out in tears. And even now, I mean, this is like the most emotional I've gotten in a long time. But the first thing that I think and if anyone's watching this video in the future, and you find out that you're diagnosed with something that the textbooks tell you have, technically, if you did nothing, right, 4 months to a year to live, it's scary as hell. The great thing about allopathic medicine, though, is that the strides that they are making, and not to overplay AI, but artificial intelligence is moving and advancing. Like they say, Moore's Law used to be you're doubling chip capacity every 18 months. Well, Moore's Law is out the door. Moore's Law has been now you're doubling chip capacity every several months, And so if you're able to do that, then you're able to move medicine along. And it doesn't take 10 years to go through phase 1, 2, and 3 trials, each one taking at least 2 years, and then everything in between, and $1 billion,
Yeah.
right? So those advances are going to come, that much more, down the road. But there's, the things that when you're diagnosed, though, everyone tells you, oh my gosh, there's so many good things that are happening and things like that. And I just did. There are so many good things that are happening, but it's you. And you're thinking in the back of your mind, I got to get prepared for this. And so when you do, you're driving in the car and you're going to work or you're going someplace and you're thinking about what you're going to be doing, but at the same point in your time, you're saying, well, why am I even doing that?
Yeah.
Because I should be doing something completely different. I should be, going to Europe and renting a place for several months in Barcelona or something. And I know that sounds obnoxious, especially for people that can't do that.
Right.
But I don't care if you would just staying home and just hanging out with the kids or, and doing something different. But you live in two worlds. You can't help but live in two worlds. One is that you have to be ready for the drug to stop working. And the beauty of what's going on with some of these cancer drugs is they're turning it into a chronic condition, and it's as opposed to a fatal, condition. So chronic would be, literally turning it into almost like asthma-like.
Right.
We can treat this, and you can live a natural life. And so you say to yourself, that's what I would be telling somebody else. Like if you said I was just diagnosed, I'd be saying, but Laura, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's you, internally, you're going, you still have that doubt.
Absolutely.
Right?
What if I'm the one
Right.
that it's not fine?
Exactly.
And I think
Yeah.
more people than ever have that programming probably post-pandemic, because all of the fear was incited and it created these neural pathways in us, whether we want them or not.
Yes.
So more people are just aware of their physical health, way more aware than
Way more.
before. I think that's why your knowledge that you gained through this. So tell me about that. You did a bunch of research then along the way, or did you rely on the naturopathic doctor and your oncologist? Like, how did you gain the knowledge to be confident in the decisions you were making?
I think I had 2 concierge doctors. I've dropped one now, and I'm working with one down here in Florida. I have the oncology team up at in New Haven. That's very good. I'm also working now with Jupiter Medical, and some really good things have come out of that. As a matter of fact, I would say I'm very, very lucky. I think I said this last time, at least privately, that I feel like I have been tapped on the shoulder. I've been given I don't want to say a warning, but I've given notice that you're not in the perfect health you thought you were. And as a matter of fact, you've got a fatal disease, but it's working, it's being treated. Mm-hmm. So I think it's been kind of, I don't want to say tested, but I'm given a chance to say, what are you going to do with your life, while you have it? What are you going to achieve? What are you going to try to advance or advocate for?
Okay, so it's really changed your approach to life.
Yeah, because everybody thinks that they have all the time. Everybody knows they're going to die, but nobody thinks it's going to be anytime soon.
How has it changed your approach to work and family? The first being work, like stress over work and the amount that you work. So how's it changed that part of your life? Well,
as it relates to work, I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have a group of people and partners that I've worked with. I'm going to look at the camera in case they see this, to say that they have been, it's just been phenomenal. We have a small boutique, like 21 people, and started this particular aspect of the firm back in 2002. And it was after 9/11, and we grouped together, and so they've been fantastic. So they do all the work. They really do. I can open some doors, and I've always been a sales guy. So I've been the pitch guy, and open the door, and then and they take care of it. So how has it changed my work life? If anything, I'm kind of a little bit freer because I have to remind myself that I can't do that as much
and take care of you
and do it the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to force myself out of that world because I'll just fall back into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. It's kind of like you. You're a type A personality, and if you feel good, and guess what? I feel fantastic. If I didn't know I was sick, I wouldn't know I was sick. My last 2 PET scans, I am malignancy free. It's one of the side effects of the drug. It makes you tongue-tied.
Okay.
And very confused.
That's tough for you.
And confused.
That's really...
Yeah. It's like...
How has it changed your life, Joe?
Right.
That's the most...
Oh, it is.
Joe is tongue-tied.
You go to grab a word, and it's like...
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part of the question is, how did it affect your family? But I think it would be helpful for the audience to know is if they have a loved one who is diagnosed with a chronic illness or a life-threatening illness, how can they best support their loved one?
Yeah. Well, it seems like such an obvious question, but it's a great question because I think there's so many different answers to it. In my case, my wife was incredibly supportive, and so she went out and really looked at, like what foods to eat and how to approach this. And she changed her diet, to accommodate mine. So she was trying to get me to eat salmon forever, and I never would because I thought salmon was gross. I thought it was like an oily fish and things like that. I probably eat salmon 4 nights a week.
Wow.
It's probably too much. I'm going to find out I have some kind of mercury
exactly.
poison. There's always
Every
something.
week it's something different.
Yeah.
Do this. No, don't do that. That kills you.
That's right. So there's always something that gets you, But But other things like just looking at there's that app Yucca, and you go and you put your cell phone up to the barcode, and it tells you where things are. But you just got to look at sugar. The sugar content in food is just sinful. It's disgusting, and I mean Cheerios, things that Rice Krispies, things that you would think that are so bland and nothing, and the amount of sugar that's included in them. So it's finding the right foods to do. So it's very supportive on that. My kids were great. I think everybody was extremely emotional in the beginning, and then over time, as my scans started to improve, and I have to remember, if I'm malignancy free right now, that doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's just being suppressed. So my job, the way I look at it is, I don't want something that's suppressed. I want something gone, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pursuing that and doing everything I can to extricate that from my body.
Now, how is your treatment team with that mentality? Are they supportive, and do they say, yes, you can extricate that from, because you've completely changed your lifestyle, it sounds like. You've had a full lifestyle shift.
Yes, there's two different teams. There's, they're dealing with a northern team and a southern team right now, a little bit. Southern is going to ramp up. But
you mean New York and Florida?
Yeah.
New York and Florida, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that one is more open-minded towards, again, the naturopathic medicines and how they play. And the other one is really, you could do that if you want.
So interesting. I know.
It really is, which makes a patient feel like, oh, wow, you're not endorsing it, and you're at best ambivalent.
Yeah.
At best. So that part, that's where it comes down to the fact that you have to believe yourself that there is, well, think about it. In and of itself, does it enhance your health to, without any kind of diagnosis, to just eat better, right? Well, you'd say, yes, of course it does, right? But when I tell people that I just knocked out sugar in literally 5 seconds and eliminated it from my diet, they said, was it hard? Mm-hmm. And I go like, well, I used to be a wrestler in high school and college, and what was hard was when the coach told you had to lose 12 pounds in a day and a half, right? And it meant you couldn't eat dinner that night, and you couldn't eat breakfast the next morning, and you had to do the weigh-ins and whatever. And so when you're told no, and there's no reason for it, or if a person just wants to go on a diet, it's hard when they say, like, oh, I can't eat that, I can't do that. But when you have a potentially fatal disease, it's really easy, to make those kind of decisions. So I'm trying to answer your question. I think the people that are around you, that obviously, if they can be supportive, right, and probably listen when you need to talk, are probably the only things you can do, really.
Yeah.
Because it's, you ultimately, you fight it. I say that the mental side, for me, the mental side is things that you're involved with, on that side, but it's also a very good dose of religion.
Yeah,
because,
I was going to ask about that, where spirituality came in. Yeah.
Yeah, I just, again, it's just me, but I can't imagine that somebody that was diagnosed with something very, very serious, that they don't reach out, even if they're completely non-religious, that they don't say a prayer saying, please help me.
Yeah.
It's foreign to me. I mean, do you think that that's possible? That somebody that would be like a total atheist gets diagnosed with something and then just sits there and says, crap,
I think it would be The exception, not the rule. However, we've talked about open-mindedness several times in this conversation, and I think that is one takeaway I hope everyone listening takes is when you have an open mind, that's when you can let the light in. That's when you can let those things in. But I do think that some people they have a closed mind, period. So
I think that's just so sad.
Yeah.
Because it means it's just you, and I do believe, and that's the a very comforting thing for me, is that I do believe, so long that I can stay a good person, or become a better person, that there is a heaven,
Right.
and that I'm going there, or I hope to be going there, and that I'll be able to tell my kids at some point in time, I'm just going first. I'll be there.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a hard part for some people, Joe, because not everyone has a family, or they may not value themselves, or they may not, I have that perspective because I've helped sick and suffering people for
Right.
so many years. And
Right.
so I know that not everybody has the open mind because they don't have, they don't have that value in themselves. And therefore you're not really thinking of what you're living for. You're okay kind of
Right.
with just being sick and suffering. And I think that's what's so inspiring about your story. And I was wondering if you're willing to share the story about your neighbor and that experience and how that came full circle for you. Diagnosis.
Yes. Well, I'll keep that part private, but I just started a foundation at Jupiter Medical, and it's going to be for preventative care, community outreach, communications, just to let people know that you can come in for screening, and we're going to make this available to those that can't afford it. But the ability to catch this early and to be able to do something, rather than maybe it'll be a stage 1 or 2, rather than let it get to a 4. But this was an individual that I had met just at the end of last season, and I was heading back up to New York, and we had plans to play this, fall golf and this winter, and he had a similar diagnosis, but had been going through this for a longer period than I did, and I found out, a few weeks back that he had passed away. Mm-hmm. So we're going to name this in his name at Jupiter Medical, and hopefully, continue to fund this and make it something that it's bigger and bolder in the years to come. So that's that. And then the other thing I was saying, I happened to be reading the Wall Street Journal today, and there was an article about this humorist writer, and her name is Judith Viorst. I am probably butchering that, but Viorst. And she wrote a book, and it's called Making the Best of What's Left. Mm-hmm. And she's exploring the fact of, based on her age, the last fifth of her life and things like that. And I love the line she put in there. She said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now, right? So it is really kind of like, what do you do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's...
and this is what you're doing now. You're establishing a foundation to help others. And you're sitting here to tell the story and to share the story with others. Right. Which has a ton of value too. Yeah. No, it's been a exploration, and I know so many people that have it worse than I do. But I would be happy to talk to anybody that ever wanted to just explore, what I've been through, and ways, that they may
be helpful for them to approach it as well?
Our role is to help people get into that empowered, prevention-focused mindset.
Right.
Because that's really where you can more mindfully make decisions when you are in a stressful, fearful situation.
Right.
Or even just burned out and overwhelmed with life, let alone chronic illness.
Right.
Thank you so much for being here to share your story. I'm sure it's not easy. You've been through a lot in the last year, but I'm confident that the audience is going to take a lot away from what you shared and the hard work that you put into yourself. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this is knowing how successful you are in business and this beautiful family that you have, that you invested even more in yourself this year to help yourself heal.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
And don't forget to like, follow, and share Prevention Pioneers on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Welcome back to the 2026 season.